Welcome back to another edition of Real Recognizes Real, where I am your host, College Cottrell. And this week we're going to the defensive side of the ball, and we're traveling down to Norman, Oklahoma to look at none other Edge R. Mason Thomas. So, with that said, I do want to go ahead and get right on into it. And you know how it goes. We'll go through the pros and cons with you. We'll give you the NFL comparison, and then ultimately we'll review three games of his college career and just kind of assess where he's at and ultimately show you guys what I think he could be at the next level. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get right on into the pros and cons here. And the first thing that really stands out to me with R. Mason Thomas is his ability to win with either speed or power, or combine the two ultimately to win a pass rush rep there. So I have speed to power here. He can win with get off. So, as soon as the ball moves, he's getting off the snap there and he's beating tackles pretty much out of their stance, almost every obvious passing situation there. And like I mentioned, he can also win with that bull rush with the power. It's just kind of a change of pace thing there. The second thing that I have with him that really stands out to me is that his bend is absolutely immaculate. So I know you guys have seen, the combine drills or pro day drills and things like that, where you have your edge rushers running around the hoop. He is absolutely excellent at doing that, where he can get low, get under those bigger tackles. And I think especially for him being an undersized guy, that bend is going to be critical, especially at the next level when you want to beat those guys that have the athleticism, but also have the size over you there. And then the last thing that I have with him ultimately is that he's a versatile guy. At Oklahoma, they used them in a lot of different situations where they had him lined up as a traditional kind of 3-4 outside linebacker. So he would have the ability to drop into coverage. They'd also have him, on the edge as a traditional kind of pass rushers there, and then the five technique. And then they also had him slide inside sometimes where he was, a 4-eye, or he was lined up over a guard, or they had him run some stunts there where he was trying to beat the centers and things like that. So I think he's pretty versatile as far as his talent goes. I wouldn't necessarily think it's a positive or a negative what he can do in coverage, but he just has the ability and the athleticism ultimately to drop into coverage. So I think that could be something that teams would look at as a positive there for him. Now, just taking a look at some of the cons here. The first one being is durability. So, if you know our Mason Thomas or you're familiar with his college career, he had two major ankle surgeries, pretty early on. And then this past year, he did have a soft tissue injury where he missed a couple games there as well. So, I mean, just consistently, staying on the field is definitely going to be a concern there. And especially, given the two ankle surgeries. But I think he's young enough and he also has production to where that shouldn't scare you off too much, but definitely something I wanted to point out. Something I mentioned there as well, just talking about the pros and, as a positive with his ability to bend. I do think a con for him is going to be that frame. And I think he does well working with the size that he has there. But I do think it's important to mention that he is slightly undersized to be, an every down edge or an every down outside linebacker there. So I think he has the talent to, slow down the run and things like that. But just from a strategical standpoint there, I can definitely see where, if a team wants to put him in the best position to be successful, they may, try to just filter him in and throw him in there in the obvious passing situations. And then ultimately, the last thing that I have here as a con is that, sometimes he needs to learn that he has to do his job. And, to me, I think it was pretty obvious that he was the best defender on this Oklahoma defense. And I think at times that made him probably feel like he had, to do more, or he felt like there was more on his plate that, he wanted to do. And so I saw it at times that he would lose contain or, sometimes lose his gap integrity in the run game and things like that. I think that's something pretty easy to fix. It wasn't something that, stuck out as something that happened necessarily all the time, but you noticed it, in the games against more mobile quarterbacks. And two of those games, the two games they had against mobile quarterbacks, we will kind of point out here during the film study. So, but with that said, though, I do want to go ahead and get into his player comparison here. And for me, I think that our Mason Thomas reminds me a lot of Nick Bonito, especially coming out of Oklahoma there. You look at these guys' frames, pretty much identical 6'2, 6'3, 241, 248. Nick Bonito was a special athlete. And yeah, obviously you saw that on display at the combine, 35.5-inch vertical, 4'5, 440. And our Mason Thomas, though, is no slouch. He didn't necessarily jump at the combine, but you see the 4.67 speed there. That's plenty speed to get off. And again, it's pretty evident when you see him on the field and his ability to rush the passer. And I do think it's a kind of funny comparison here as well, just kind of considering that Nick Benito was a guy who was coming out of Oklahoma there as well. Similar role there. Pretty much doing identical things. And Nick Benito is kind of transformed into being this monstrous edge rusher in the NFL. And coming out, he was a second round pick who, the talent was obviously shown there. But I think similar to R. Mason Thomas here, I think you had some untapped potential there. And obviously both are very natural pass rushers, are going to be excellent at getting off and getting to the quarterback. So for me, I felt like this was the perfect comparison of the two. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into the film. So the first game that I have up here, we're going to go to 2024. So I got one game from 2024, which is going to be against Tulane, and I think this is a kind of an important game to look at because it was a close game pretty much the entire way. And I do want to remind you guys that Darian Mensah was Tulane's quarterback in 2024. So the fact that, he's now at Miami, the talent level is there. And then I also have two other games from 2025, one against Auburn and, Jackson Arnold being their quarterback, and then one against Lenora Sellers, who many believe is going to be a first or second round pick next year when he ultimately comes out. So, three games that I ultimately wanted to highlight there. First one that we will start out with, though, is going to be from 2024 against Darian Mensah and that Tulane offense. So the first play that I have here, and it's going to be a positive play here, and that's going to be that R. Mason has purpose. So let's go ahead and dive right on in here. So you'll see him up at the top here, I believe, and starts off the game pretty early, defeats the cross block coming to him, and really just disrupts the play. And, with us focusing on edges, I do want to just kind of point this out as well. We're probably going to be looking a lot more at the end zone view just because it's going to be a lot cleaner to see exactly what's going on here. So you'll see it from here. R. Mason Thomas is over here. He's unblocked originally. He knows something is coming to him. And I think it was a really smart thing for him to try and go through it. And that really disrupts the play. And you can see it as it goes on here. The running back really never had an opportunity. And this looks like it's almost a hold there, but RS does a great job of disrupting that play. That's a tackle for a loss. His teammates come and clean that up. That's great stuff from him. Now we're going to move on to 7-13 in this one, where I have this charted as get off. So we're going to see the acceleration from the line of scrimmage here. Lane 2. Maybe I got to go a little bit further back. All right, perfect. So you'll see our Mason Thomas right here lined up, and he's I think he gets actually shifted slightly inside here. Yep, just like that. So he's in the 4-eye and get off right away, getting after the quarterback there, makes the quarterback get rid of it and throw it away pretty early there in that. So again, I think this shows the versatility there. So it doesn't have to just be from a traditional edge position. So again, you'll see here, they shift him slightly inside there. That's him right there. Comes over and passer situation, beats the edge on the outside and makes the quarterback throw the ball away pretty early there. And that, again, great get off from this guy in this game here. Now we're going to move on later in this game. And like I said earlier, this was a game that was pretty tight down the stretch. So, these defensive reps absolutely mattered in this one. So we'll go to 33-45. And I think as it became money time, he really started to put his stamp on the game. It's 24-19 here late in the fourth quarter. Boom. All right. So Tulane has the ball, and let's see if we can find Armace. I think he's down here on the edge against the right tackle. Got this listed as purpose too. So right away, he had a plan. He executed beautifully as far as that goes. So we'll see it again from the end zone view here. So this is also what I'm talking about when I say speed to power. So he gets into him. The get off was great there. Then he gets into him a little bit, gives him a little push pull, goes around, runs the hoop there, gets a sack on the quarterback, and how quick that was. I mean, quarterback really never had an opportunity to make a play there. So I believe I have this as the very next play here. I'm imagining. Let's see what happens. So you got R. Mason down there at the bottom again, and nothing really happens there. So believe I probably mischarted that one, but we will go ahead and go on to 35 minutes here in this game. All right. So moving positions here. Now he's lined up over the left tackle at the top there. And let's see what happens here. I got it listed as him just absolutely being a playmaker. So go off the edge. No, he's not getting to the quarterback. He's able to recognize right away that it's a screen pass, jumps up, disrupt the pass. You get the deflection, the bat down at the line of scrimmage there. Beautiful stuff from him. And it's something that he notices right away. So as an edge, boom, you see you're not getting blocked and you know it's a pass play. You see the ball is still in the quarterback's hands. You know something's got to be happening backside. And for R. Mason to just recognize that right away off the snap of the ball, gets the get off, gets right in front of the quarterback's lane there, gets his hands up, bats that ball down. That's beautiful, beautiful stuff from him to disrupt the play that could have gone for a really big gain there, just based on how the Tulane blockers got out there. So now we will go to the last play in this one. We're going to 38-23. So go 38-23 here. And I believe this is the one that put the game on ice. So it's 34-19. Tulane's got the ball here. They're trying to stay in it. But again, R. Mason down here, bottom of the screen, rushing against this right tackle here. Let's take a look and see what happens. Boom. Beats him to the edge. Sack, fumble, recovery, game time. Again, absolutely beautiful stuff from him in this game here. So again, take a look here, out the stance. You beat him with speed. He's already underneath this tackle, which again, I think he does a great job of utilizing his size and his frame there. And he's just running that hoop. He gets down underneath him, keep going around. You get the sack, you get the strip, you recover it yourself, and you put the game on ice. Beautiful stuff here from Mr. Nick Bonito. Now, let's go ahead and get into the second game here. And again, we're going to be going to 2025 in this one, and we're going to go into the game against Auburn. Now, this game against Auburn is kind of special because for the first half, he was actually serving a suspension due to a targeting call that had ultimately happened the week prior. So we only have one half of football. And so for us to be doing a film study with only one half of football, that shows you just his ability to put a stamp on a game here. So we will go ahead and get that pulled up here against Auburn. There we go. And first play, but I believe this was the second play right out of halftime. He puts his stamp on it pretty much right away. Got it listed here as get off, and he's lined up against the right tackle here, bottom of your screen. And let's take a look and see what happens. So right away, boom, get off, runs the hoop, goes long, doesn't matter, gets to the quarterback. Luckily, the guys on the back end were in great coverage there, but he is relentless when it comes to attacking the quarterback and trying to get there. So again, they push him slightly inside there. He's able to beat him with speed around the edge and attacks the quarterback, gets the sack, and again, immediate impact being in the game. Literally, second play of the Auburn drive there. So now it's 3rd and 18. And you know what happens? They force him off the field there, and it leads to Oklahoma getting the ball back in a tie football game, might I add. So now we will go ahead and go to number 2 in the Auburn game. And that is going to be, looks like 2503 maybe. Yeah, we'll go to 2503 in this one. Nope, I like 2530. All right, let's take a look, see what we got here. So, got him up at the top there, and we'll just start it right here. All right, perfect. So, we got our Mason lined up top of the screen here, and I got this listed as effort. So, you'll see here, I actually think this is a little bit of what I was talking about as far as him losing his gap integrity here, because I know this play ultimately goes for a big game here. So, you'd think here you had a player shoot the gap there. If our Mason is also there, there's no reason why this should turn into a monster game with just the Oklahoma defenders already being freed up there. But we'll let it run here. But look at it right now. So boom. This is you would imagine that if this running back could find a way to split these two and get out there, this could potentially be a touchdown. Just with how it's happening there. So our Mason Jr., our Mason Thomas, excuse me, is going to be down here in this group of guys here. And let's take a look and see what he does. So boom, you see him on his horse. He is moving, takes the angle to get to the running back and gets him down there. You often do not see defensive defensive linemen or edge guys that are able to track down a running back like that in space, especially after missing the original play there. So again, I'm going to take it back just a little bit here, and I'm going to pause it to where you can see the angle that he ultimately had to take to get the running back down here. So boom, right there. He's essentially got like a 3-4 yard head start at this point, and our Mason is really trying to get back on balance and get out there. But what does he do? He gets on his horse. He says, I'm gonna go make the tackle. I'm not worried about my corners, not worried about my safeties doing it. I'll go do it myself. And that's great effort from a guy, especially in the run game when you know that he's a pass rusher, truly at heart there. Now we are going to move on to 33-13. And this one I got charted as um, him losing contain. So we will go here, our Mason Thomas, top of the screen here, and let's take a look and see what happens. So does a great job beating the tackle with speed there. But as a quarterback, your job is to, feel that pressure. You step up, and then there is absolutely nothing in this space over here. So let's take a look and see what Jackson Arnold does, who again is known as a mobile quarterback there as well. So he has some wheels to him. So does exactly that. Steps up, gets outside there, and then scrambles off for a big time gain. And this ultimately moved the chains and moved the sticks for a first down. So again, we'll see it from this angle here. I think it's one thing to be aggressive in terms of pass rush, but you do also have to be disciplined. And beating guys with speed off the edge is, it's great, and we saw it work out for you earlier in this game. But you also have to be mindful of who you're playing and also have a plan here. So again, I think losing contain here, pretty big alley. Jackson Arnold's able to get out there and get a first down for that Auburn Tigers team. Do your job. Again, not something that showed up a ton, but something I definitely wanted to point out there with them. And then we will go back down to 41-10, where I believe this was the last play of the game, where he absolutely put it on ice for Oklahoma here. So just to kind of paint the scene here, Auburn is down 5, and this is the fourth quarter. I believe this is fourth down, and they need this to try and go win the football game here. Our Mason Thomas is down here, bottom of the screen, lined up against the right tackle, and let's take a look and see what happens. Boom. So goes right through the right tackle. The running back is there. He tries to give the chip, but the bull rush was too strong there. He went right through the right tackle. So again, let's take a look at it from this angle here, from the end zone view. So you see, get off right away. The plan was always, you could tell, the plan was always to get under this tackle's chin and just go right through him, especially knowing that the running back is going to be here to chip as well. We'll go right through both of them and we'll make the play to end the game. So goes right through him, gets to the quarterback, gets the sack. I would have liked, just from a standpoint there, I would like Jackson Arnold to try and step up there. But when that pressure is in your face pretty much immediately there's really not much you can do. And again, Jackson Arnold put the stamp on I mean, R. Mason Thomas put the stamp on that one, and that was ultimately all she wrote there in that game. Now we will move on to the last game where it is against O- Oklahoma versus South Carolina. And go ahead and share the screen. And again, this is against Lenora Sellers, who many of you I'm sure are familiar with, is going to be a top pick in next year's class. So um, where are we starting at in this one? We're going to start off. See, one from speed to power, and this play is kind of funny because yeah, I mean you'll see it here, but we'll just start it off right here. Back it up just a little bit so you can actually see the get off there as well. So you got R. Mason Thomas lined up here, bottom of the screen against the left tackle, and you will see the speed to power. So get off right away, gets gets right through him, and he's there to make this play. Norris is there. This should be a sack, and so this is a positive. It's also a little bit of a negative there as well because as you will see here, R. Mason doesn't get him to the ground. He actually gets stiff armed, and Lenoris turns that and what should have been a sack into, actually a pretty decent gain there. So we'll see it again here from the end zone view. He is going right through this left tackle, is giving him everything he can handle and then some. But Lenoris is strong enough to get him off with the stiff arm there and actually get a gain there. So I think it's some positive with the negative there. But again, Lenoris is a special QB there. So don't necessarily want to hold it too much against them, but I think it's just kind of something that shows you what can be in R. Mason's arsenal there. Now we will go to 14-11 here to show you some of that get off. So again, this play is kind of funny too because it ultimately ends up being a touchdown here. But you have R. Mason Thomas bottom of the screen here going against the same left tackle that we just saw in the last play there, and look at the get off. So ball snap immediately off, going right through him. Use a little bit of power, use some speed there. Lenore's had to get it away quickly, and he got it away quick enough to where it ultimately ended up being a touchdown. But that is a great rep from R. Mason there. So we'll see it again here from the end zone view. He's lined up over here, immediately off, and one could argue that that was a false start from the left tackle, just how he got out of his stance. But that's how quick you have to get out of your stance to get in front of R. Mason here. So we'll kind of watch it slowly here. Ball hasn't been snapped yet. Left tackle's already out. That is the R. Mason Thomas effect here. That is exactly what this is. So gets through him, goes around, and right before you can get home, Lenore's gets the ball out, and it turns out to be a touchdown there. But again, we're more so focused on the rep itself. They're not the result of the play. Now we're gonna move on to 2502, and we just got a few more in this one before we are all wrapped up here with Mr. Thomas. But let's see, 2502. Go right here. All right. So top of the screen here, they must have liked this matchup against this left tackle from South Carolina. I got this play listed as get off. So we'll see it again here. Immediately around the edge, sack. Absolutely nothing Lenoris could do there. We know Lenoris is a great athlete. We know that we saw the stiff arm earlier where he's able to kind of create some stuff out of nowhere. And again, kind of cheating a little bit here, but you see the ball still has not moved yet. And this left tackle is already getting out of his stance to try and beat R. Mason to the spot there. So even with him getting the slight advantage there and getting out of the stance, it doesn't matter because R. Mason gets right around him because he's been mixing it up so much throughout this game. He had been bull rushing him and getting home. And now this time, immediate outside little dip, go through, and you get the sack on the quarterback in less than 2 seconds. I mean, that's incredible stuff there from R. Mason Thomas there. Now we will go to 33-13, where he loses some contain here. So just like we saw in the previous game against Jackson Arnold, what feels like an obvious pass rush situation. Believe this is no, we're going to 28. Sorry, 28 even. It's probably the same play. We'll probably get back here, but boom. So bottom of the screen here, lined up. They moved him. Now he's up against the right tackle here, and gets a somewhat of a decent rush there. Did he get held? Maybe. I think one can argue that did kind of look like a hold. But again, you kind of have to know who you're playing and what your responsibilities are. With this rep, you could tell he really wasn't getting home. I think the right tackle did a great job of kind of, establishing a base there. But again, you have to know that you have somebody inside here who should be plugging up this gap here. And then ultimately, your job is to also keep contained, especially knowing that you have as great of a mobile quarterback as Lenore Sellers there. So gets outside of him. And again, that could have been a hole, maybe. But I also don't like the visual of Lenore's being there and he's just running. And our Mason is just has his hands up, kind of going downfield there, not even trying to make a play there. We saw the effort in the last game, and we saw him chase down a running back from Auburn. In this one, he felt like he got held, and I think he had a solid argument, but doesn't mean you have to run downfield with your hands up when you have the ability to go down and make a play there as well. So just kind of two things I wanted to point out there with that one. But as always, we have to end it with something good, and we're going to end it with the get off. And we're going to go to 29-30. So just a couple plays later in this one. And I feel like he redeemed himself quite well. So you see, lined up against his favorite left tackle probably in all of the SEC here. And let's take a look and see what happens. So beats him to the edge, and Lenore's kind of escapes, but luckily, our Mace Thomas had some teammates that were also there. Still gets credit here with the sack ultimately. So right away, boom, finish your food. Again, I know Lenore's is great, but finish your food. You had him here, and it ultimately ended up being even more of a loss because Lenore's had to retreat. But I mean that get off is absolutely immaculate there, and the fact that he was able to get to the quarterback pretty much right away. But this is what we call relentlessly pursuing the quarterback here as well. So you miss the play, but then you follow it up, and you still get him down, and it gets counted as a sack for you. So um, absolutely love to see it. And I think that, our Mason's going to go to the league and he's going to be special, man. I don't have that Nick Bonito comparison for him, and I don't use that lightly. I think he's going to be a great pass rusher, especially if he goes to the right team and he's in the right system. Because I think he has all the tools to be a truly natural pass rusher there. I see him being a first round, maybe a second round talent. Personally, I think I have him as my third best edge, and that's including all the guys you can think of. And I'll have a full breakdown of my top five position by position. That's including, the Ruben Baines, the David Baileys, the Arvell Reeses. That's including all those guys. I got R. Mason as my edge three, and I think that's a true testament to what his skill set really is. But with that said, that is all this week for the film breakdown. Next week, we're going to go back to the offensive side of the ball, and we're going to stay in the SEC though. We're going to go to Vanderbilt, and we're going to break down some Eli Stowers film. So appreciate you guys tapping in here with me today. I hope you guys are enjoying March Madness. And until next week, when we break down another guy, and we were just getting 1 week closer to the NFL draft actually happening. So again, appreciate all you guys tapping in here with me, and look forward to seeing you here again next week.